Hey guys, welcome back. So now with getting back into New Mutants, which is one of the more recent series that I wanted to approach a little bit different with our talks on the playlist and approach this a little bit differently than we've done with X-Men, X-Force, Excalibur, and everything else. And mainly because for the most part, there are like 3 different stories going on, which I still wanted to arrange on one playlist, but with doing so, I wanted to turn the 3 conversations into 2. So at this point, we'll be wrapping up the space portion, and after this, we'll get more into what's been going on with New Mutants on Earth, because I really want that conversation to be more cohesive with the way that it runs into Sebastian Shaw. But for now, space talk. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so picking back up at the point where Gladiator had sent for Super Guardian to go on this secret mission and retrieve Deathbird so that she could secretly be an advisor / mentor to Zandra. And Gladiator needed Deathbird to do this mainly because Zandra was needed on the throne while he would remain with the Imperial Guard. But also when we had seen him meet with Mentor and Oracle, not long after, this is when we had seen Oracle leave and give the word to the Shi'ar Death Commandos. And I like what Hickman did with bringing in this group into the mix, because with them being the Shi'ar secret goon squad who have been around, like we've seen them before in issues of Uncanny X-Men and New Mutants, and with them being the team that takes care of things for the Shi'ar that have air quotes never happened, who better for Oracle to send after Deathbird, who to the public eye is not supposed to be escorted to the Shi'ar Empire. And for the Death Commandos who have Deathbird's exact coordinates, even though Super Guardian has her taking every back road in outer space, which set the perfect stage for an attack where nobody's looking and ambush this transit that supposedly never happened. And this is exactly where we pick back up. But with doing so, we're given the narration by Sunspot, who if you guys remember is super in love with Deathbird, so take his words with every grain of salt that you can find in the galaxy. But when we get his telling of the story, he first lets us know that it was magic that reached out and saved Mondo and Chamber, who Black Cloak, leader of the Death Commandos, had ordered their portion of the ship to be blown to pieces with some of his men along with them, which was a pretty messed up move by Black Cloak, but if you're a Death Commando, it's kinda what you signed up for, because for the most part, these guys are super disposable, given their secrecy. But where we had seen the New Mutants discover this ambush, split up and take out whatever commandos they could, they were occupied with regrouping and getting everyone safe on another ship, while Sunspot, Deathbird, Cannonball, Super Guardian, and Cypher, they were taken in by Black Cloak. And it's here where Sunspot goes to tell this story to where like Black Cloak was about to kill Deathbird, but he jumped in the way, saved her life, so like from there she would forever remember him as a hero, which was like his first version. But not long after that, he's like, okay, let me double back, I'm gonna keep it 100, and he tells us like for starters, they were all being tortured before Deathbird broke in and saved all of them. And he admits mainly Cypher because during the torture, he broke the quickest, cried the loudest, like he was giving up passwords and all that. But in this real deal version of how it really went down, to where this time around it jumps from your 60% truth to like your 85-90ish% truth. Because what happened next was very real, with Deathbird killing Black Cloak, which I gotta say is one, iconic, but it also feels like it's one of those things that's gonna weigh some consequences at some point later on down the line. Because with Deathbird doing this, it doesn't get rid of the Shi'ar Death Commandos, because for years they've had this bittersweet connection with the Shi'ar, who on one hand always has worked for them, but on the other hand it's more like a 1099 situation because there's no replacement program. So for a number of the members, if they're killed, it's pretty tough to find someone else. But the commander is a quite different situation, because whoever fills the Black Cloak position, this would be done quickly by either someone from the Imperial Guard or a selected former Super Guardian, unlike the others who are just handpicked from across the galaxy. Like the Black Cloak is always picked from in-house, and this is something that could fall over to the current Super Guardian, Isabel Kane, but I feel like this is something we'll more likely see come back once I start getting into the Easter eggs, pun intended, for Black Cloak's replacement. But with wrapping up Roberto's story, it ends with a couple of kisses and a punch from Deathbird, which is something he later admits was more punches than kisses. But after all this, they ended up taking the Death Commando ship and using it to make their way back to Chandelier, which took them about 5 or 6 cycles to get there, and we're going to talk more about that before the end of this video, and mainly to keep certain things together. But until then, it's here where we see Guardian and Oracle reassuring Zandra that the Imperial Guard will do whatever it takes to protect the throne, which kind of feels like this foreshadowing that the throne is more important than Zandra, than Guardian, than Oracle, or than anyone. But a cycle after this, when Deathbird actually gets back, she goes in, because she greets her niece, Zandra, who in return thanks Deathbird for coming out to help her in a new role, which is practically teaching Zandra how to be a leader. And from the door, Deathbird is like, here's lesson 1, no mercy for traitors. And she just chucks her spear at Oracle, who would have been impaled had not Gladiator caught it in midair. But because Gladiator didn't know that Oracle sent the Death Commanders after Deathbird, he chucks her spear right back at her and is caught by Sunspot. And not only does he catch it, but he breaks it in half. And with doing so, just really being in the moment of saving the woman that he's crazy about, and probably so that next time he tells a story, at least this part will be true. But when he broke the spear, Deathbird was pretty much like, yo, that was my favorite spear, bro. And he was just pretty much like, well, oh man, I know, that was a little too much. But it was this here which essentially sparked an all-out brawl, which was insane, and ultimately it was really all just Oracle's fault. But no one would really realize this until much later, because Deathbird was just absolutely sure that Gladiator sent Oracle to do this, with Deathbird believing that Oracle and Gladiator were on the same page as far as wanting her dead. But when Xandra ordered for this all-out brawl to stop, it's here where she discovered that Oracle had made this move by herself, which in this moment was a surprise to Gladiator, who I wouldn't doubt wants Deathbird dead, but ultimately he wants what's best for the throne. But when he makes the suggestion to handle the situation as far as dealing with Oracle's punishment, Xandra then lets him know that she has another idea, and as Oracle's punishment, she's moving Oracle to be her personal advisor, working alongside with Deathbird in order to train Xandra to think like a soldier and a sovereign, which I think will be pretty interesting seeing the two of them work together in the future. But after this, where we see Mondo and Chamber, who are pretty much glad that all this is over, but when they're done and they're trying to figure out where to plant this gateway, it's here where we jump over to a party at Sam and Izzy's place, or otherwise known as Cannonball and Super Guardian. But I gotta say, like, this party is packed and it is jumping because Magneto showed up, and this is likely the gathering that Scott was talking to Logan about back when we talked about the Crucible and Scott invited Logan to come out to shi'ar space. Like, this is possibly what that was. But with this jumping here, do keep in mind that the gate that is in Cannonball and Super Guardian's home, that this gate has been here for some time, and up to this point this has been like the only gate that a few would cross through to make their way all the way out here to shi'ar space, or in the case for Sam and Izzy, for them to make their way to the Crucible. But while they're here, Sunspot overhears a conversation that Sam is having with Magic and Mirage, to where Sam mentions that he's not leaving his home with Izzy to move to Krakoa, which shocks Roberto because he's like, wait, what, we did all that for nothing? But really, I don't even blame Sam, because he's found a situation to where he could work with his wife and raise their child in a place that's not as crazy as Earth, and really just a better situation for mutant parents at the moment. But along with this, Sam then puts the idea in Roberto's mind, like, why don't you just move out here? Which makes a lot more sense than Sam moving his whole family or just abandoning them to go live in paradise. But aside from this, we see other favors being asked when we jump over to Cyclops and Guardian. And it's here where we see Guardian thanking Cyclops for his recent contributions to the Empire, and with doing so, Guardian lets him know, like, hey, if you ever need a favor, just say the word. Where immediately after, Cyclops is like, well, there is this one thing, as if he hadn't been waiting for this moment. And with doing this, Cyclops vaguely asks Gladiator to allow Krakoa to place a door on Chandelure, to where Gladiator responds he's not crazy about how these doors look, but he can make it happen. But this is likely why Cyclops has been helping the Empire so much in order to loosen them up and finally get a door planted on Chandelure. And this is one of those things that's very reminiscent of Powers of 10, to where at the time we have gotten a lot of history which had taken place over a number of years, with mutants expanding into shi'ar space, which once again we did not see. We just got a run through of how the outlay played out, and then a much closer look of how it ended, with few mutants being left and Apocalypse being their leader, which at the time was a result of Sinister's betrayal and the rise of Nimrod. But also somewhere along that timeline, before we got Apocalypse versus Nimrod, there were also teams that had been placed together within this system who were former members of the Imperial Guard, which to me sounds very similar to the Death Commandos. Just saying. And so now, last but not least, I want to talk about this egg that Mondo has been holding on to, which the New Mutants had grabbed when they were kicking it with the Starjammers, because it very much reminds me of the whole situation with Xandra and her being the child of Charles Xavier and Lilandra. Because for Xandra, she wasn't conceived by conventional means, if you will, but rather she was constructed by combining both the DNA of Charles and Lilandra. And there's been times when we see her retreat back into that egg form, or even in a sphere form, like for a party trick. But it wouldn't surprise me if the egg being held by Mondo was like this powerful weapon of a similar origin, because originally that was the reason that Xandra was made, with both the intention of being a replacement for Lilandra, but also potentially a powerful weapon as well. And it would be pretty interesting if we found out that this new egg was a combination of a number of powerful people, and I mean in like some type of crazy OP combination. But also with this, and I wanted to mention this after the conversation between Gladiator and Cyclops, but after the New Mutants had taken the shi'ar Death Commando ship, we had also seen a sphere by the name of Sega, that was on the Death Commando ship, which from what we know likely has a similar origin to Xandra, but also this quite possibly reveals that the Shi'ar Guard has been using this process in order to manufacture their newest commander, which would be new rather than just modifying a former member of the Imperial Guard. But after all this, we also come to find out that Sunspot, who as we know has deep pockets, or at least by Earth standards, according to Deathbird, but he decided to stay in Shi'ar space, and when Izzy said he couldn't stay the night, Roberto's like, yeah, that's cool. So Sam's like, where you gonna go next? And Roberto's like, I'm staying here, which on the surface didn't make sense, but as it turns out, Roberto had bought the building. And then he's like, oh, by the way, tell your girl the rent's going up, which was a joke, of course, I think, or at least I hope. But with doing this, Roberto admits that a lot of his motivation for moving out here was so that he could be closer to Deathbird, which hopefully doesn't cause any trouble between him and Vulcan, with Deathbird and Vulcan having been married at one point, and I'm not really sure if that's still a thing, but given the fact that it was a thing at one point in time, I wouldn't be surprised if we either heard from Vulcan about it, or if Deathbird and Vulcan had an egg sitting around somewhere. But so now real quick, I just want to give a shout out to all the Patreons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here and wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link down below to where you can head over to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down below, because the next time we get back into New Mutants, that talk is going to get more into what's been going on Earth, because those events once again just feel very separate, and to me it would just make more sense to talk about them all together. But let me know all your thoughts down below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.